Hi everybody, let's get a start on week 4. I want to make sure that everybody was able to find their rubric feedback okay from week 3. If not, please be sure to reach out to me as soon as possible because the best way to make corrections is to know what you're doing wrong. So, and also if you're doing something very right, you want to keep doing it that way. So make sure you let me know if you had any trouble finding it and we can go over how to find that again. This is simply the instructions for week 4, part 1. And I want you to note that in part 2, you are asked about the processes that you took in completing the worksheet, not how you felt about it. It's okay to say, well, you liked one database over another and why, or that you really found this to be a boring project or an incredible project or whatever. But make sure that the bulk of your words are going toward what you did as a process. So you're going to have this worksheet, and I want you to know that worksheets have to be uploaded. Some instructors will not accept any work that isn't uploaded because sometimes they grade in batches, which means they download everything all at once. And if your work is not uploaded as a worksheet, it will not get graded, and some will even count it late if you need to take time to get it uploaded properly. So make sure you're doing that and learn how to do that in this class because this is your safe zone. Okay, so for part 1, keep in mind that this matrix is asking for one topic. You'll use the same topic for both of your searches. So if you're doing concussions in the NFL for the first one, you should be doing concussions in the NFL for the second one. The difference is that there will be 2 sources. So you might find concussions in the NFL in, let's say, a medical journal, and you might find it in a sports journal. Another thing to keep in mind is that these have to be from 2 different databases. So the same topic, 2 sources, each of those sources should come from a different database. They recommend EBSCOhost and ProQuest, but it doesn't have to be. If you're going in the medical field, Medline Plus is a great one. If you're going into teaching, ERIC is a great one. I know a lot of you are in business, and we have an awful lot of business databases that are really, really great for doing some research. For part 2, 150 to 200 words is what's required. That is roughly 20 words per line, so up to 10 lines for each section. One is to tell your experience, the other is to tell what you're going to do in the future. And again, tell what you did, not how you feel. And please note that databases are providers of information, not information police. Finding information in a specific database does not make it more or less accurate, valid, or authorized. So that should not be a reason for any of this, but we're just about to get into reasons. Again, one topic, 2 articles, 2 databases, and they must be from the university library. That's the point of this entire worksheet that we're doing, is for you to get a safe chance to wander through the library, complete your work, and things like that. You may never use the library again in the future, but for this assignment, that's what you need to do. So use the same topic for both analyses, different titles for both of the articles, and when it comes to the authors, if you want, you can list the last name and then the first initial. And there is a comma after the last name and a period after the first initial. You don't have to, but it's a really great way to get you in the habit of having it set up right for a copy and paste into a reference section. Now, when it comes to currency, that doesn't say what date was it published. It says, is it current? And we don't just want to know, yes, it's current, no, it's not current. How old can an article be and still be considered current? And I am going to tell you right now, if you are listening to this, 5 years is how old an article can be and still be considered current according to our University of Phoenix policy. So if you're just looking on the web for these answers, you're probably not going to find the right answer. For relevance, is the article relevant to your selected topic? It's going to be relevant probably because you are putting in the keywords that you want to find. But let's say I look up cake and I want to know if I can add cherries without changing the color of my cake. So I'm going to put in cake, but it might not tell me if, and putting cherries in, and it might not tell me if it's talking about a chocolate cake or a vanilla cake, because that's going to make a difference. So sorry for using that. It's what came to my mind, but that's the type of thing. Why is it relevant or why isn't it relevant? What is the relationship between this article you're reading and the general topic that you've looked up? For accuracy, the accuracy is dependent upon peer review unless you go through the references, every single reference in each of those articles, and validate them in the same way that you're doing your own article. So if you want to save yourself hours and hours of tedious work, select the peer review button. So that is all you would need to put in that line is this article is accurate. I know because I selected the peer review filter. All of these filters are going to practically answer this matrix for you. Even the currency, I know it's current because I made sure it was within the last 5 years in the filters. So most of this can be done that way. Authority, this is asking about the author and or the journal that it came from. You might have a Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a super authority on the cosmos, but he will tell you himself that he does not have the authority to talk about education or policing or politics because that is not where his expertise is. So being a doctor does not give one authority to write something. Is he a doctor or she a doctor of sports medicine? Is here, if we're talking about the NFL thing I mentioned earlier, how or why does this person have the authority to write about this thing, or does this article have authority to be in this book? For example, if I read something in Education Week, even though it isn't a scholarly magazine, I would be more likely to give it credibility for education articles than something I read in TV Guide or People magazine. So that is going to make a difference. For the purpose, is it propaganda? And usually you can tell by words that are used, I think, because there's just different words that you can look for. So if you find some of those, it should be a red flag that you could use that's probably got bias in it because it uses a lot of opinion, or it's validated in the peer review process. That also can work. But it's not always. Now, sometimes even bias, I'm sorry, I'm moving on. Bias will be covered in a section of the article, and that's a good thing. That means the authors thought about biases they might hold, and they did everything in their power to make sure it didn't happen. So if it's in there, you can pretty well be safe that it's not going to have a lot of bias in it because they considered it first. And if you want to double check, you can look for those specific biases in the paper. So if it's in there, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. And the indicator words I have at the bottom, I think, I feel, about 12 or about a half. In fact, saying about half instead of 50% is a clue as well. And maybe, so after you evaluate the source using the CRAP method, how this is like when you're evaluating, you're not evaluating the CRAP method itself, and you're not evaluating the article itself. What you're doing is saying, does this article follow the CRAP method? That is the biggest mistake I see in this worksheet, so make sure that that's what you're doing. Now, does anything eliminate it from being, maybe it fits everything, but it's really too short? Or maybe it doesn't, maybe it's too old to fit currency, but it's not eliminated because it's still relevant, or because I'm making a comparison between then and now, or something like that. So you have to decide on your purposes and the things like that. Those are going to have an effect on whether or not it meets the CRAP criteria and is eliminated from that or not. Part 2, what steps did you take? This is not a description of your feelings, even though a little is okay. Discuss the 2 databases. How did you find them? How do they work differently? This is where your feelings might come in a little bit, but it's not about how you felt about them. It's about, this isn't something that's going to work for me in the future. Even though it's your feelings, it's talking about what you're going to do in the future. So that part, it can be worked in there. What I don't want you to do is just talk about how you felt about using the library and it was so great and all this. That's not what this is about. It's about showing how you went through your processes so that you know what you did, what you can do better, what you learned, things like that. This is essentially a reflection. Be mindful of your word count requirements. Now, strategies you'll use going into the future, whether you're going to use the library or not isn't the point. The point is, this is the scenario you're given. Just like week 3, you're given a scenario, that's what you use. Doesn't matter how realistic it is, that's the one that we're asking you about. Just think about it. But using filters, when you're going to use the library going forward, use filters. And then anything else that you learned in the process. Okay, now here's where I'm going to say, are there any questions? But if you have questions, please look me up and we will discuss questions. And maybe I'll even add little things that I've forgotten to future videos. So good luck on everything, everyone.